Welcome to Inland Empire Alive, bringing you issues, events, and perspectives from throughout Riverside and San Bernardino counties. I'm David Brady, and today I'll welcome John St. Clair of the Sierra Club San Gorgonio chapter to talk about some fun activities in the great outdoors. That's today on Inland Empire Alive. Joining me now is John St. Clair with the Sierra Club San Gorgonio chapter to talk about some fun events in the great outdoors. John, thank you for being on the program.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
So you've got an interesting story. You have spent most of your life in the Inland Empire, but you were not born here. Tell me a little bit about how you ended up here in the IE.
So I was born in Erie, Pennsylvania, and both my parents were actually from Pittsburgh, grew up in Pittsburgh, and my two brothers were born in Pittsburgh. And when I was 3, almost 4, I believe it was 1953, my grandmother became ill with cancer, and she and my grandfather lived in Ontario. And my mother took me with her to go visit and be with her mother through her illness, and it was terminal. Well, after my grandmother died, my grandfather invited the whole family to come live with him. And at that time, there were lots of job opportunities in Southern California, so it was attractive to my father, and the whole family moved to Ontario.
What was that like for the family coming from Pittsburgh, where it's so different there? The hills, the snow, here you've got sunshine and...
Yeah, certainly big difference in weather. And Erie's even worse than Pittsburgh because it's right on the lake, and the winters are horrific. I think we all enjoyed it.
So, growing up here, what was that like compared to now in terms of the amount of open space and just places to go and places to roam free?
Well, when I was a kid, there were still orange groves in the city of Ontario. In fact, my two older brothers, both as teenagers, their job was doing odd jobs in an orange grove that was located in Ontario. And one of my favorite activities as a kid growing up is when they would bulldoze an orange grove, they would leave the trees piled up high for months before they cleared it all out. And we used to climb in amongst the branches and build forts and play. It was just great fun.
And have you always loved the outdoors as a kid?
Yes. Yeah, I really
when did you become a lover? When did you get into hiking? Because that's a particular type of outdoor passion.
Right. So my father did not like the outdoors. So growing up, I had no experience with that at all. And actually, it wasn't until a church youth group that I went on an Easter week retreat to Joshua Tree National Park that I was introduced to camping and being in the outdoors. And of course, the sky out there in the desert is just awesome. So that's when I fell in love with camping. And so when my kids got old enough, and my wife grew up camping with her family, we started going camping in Idlewild. And I started taking the boys hiking. Our two oldest children are boys, and they loved hiking with me, and we carried that on for many years. For 20 consecutive years, we camped in Yosemite for a week and hiked all the wonderful places there.
Are there particular favorite hikes you've had over the years, places you always want to go back to?
Yes, mostly in Yosemite, but I have a really favorite hike for conditioning, to keep myself in shape, that's in the Mount Baldy area, and it's to hike to the top of Mount Harwood, which is right next to Baldy. It's 9,557 feet high, and I hike on a trail that didn't used to be on the maps. It's what you call a use trail, and it just went straight up a ridge. None of this back and forth going. It's just straight up. And it's wonderful exercise. And I can't do it this time of year. I'm not in good enough shape. But by the end of the summer, I'm doing that once a week. But for scenic views, probably my favorite hike is one I'm doing next week, Telescope Peak in Death Valley.
Do you ever need time to recuperate from these hikes?
Overnight.
Okay.
I
What do you look
hike
for
a
in a
lot.
hike? I mean, is there something? I mean, certainly it's not just the elevation. There has to be something about the environment you're passing through and the scenery and the challenge of the topography. I mean, what do you look for? What do you consider a successful hike or a rewarding hike?
Well, now I really enjoy hiking with friends, and I used to hike a lot by myself, which is rewarding in a way, and it's very peaceful. But at my age, it's not a good idea. So I enjoy hiking with friends and the camaraderie that is developed. But I like scenic views along the way, and that's why I love the Telescope Peak hike, because the views are awesome. And I'm also what you call a peak bagger. I like to be on top of the mountain because of the scenic views. From the top of Telescope, you look down into Death Valley at Badwater, the lowest point in North America. You turn the other way and you can see Mount Whitney.
Wow.
Unless there's fires. As long as it's clear, yeah. And so you see the highest point in the continental United States.
So talk to me about the role you play with the Sierra Club, that you actually quite often lead hikes out into the San Gabriels. Talk to me about how you got started doing that.
Well, as I said, I did a lot of hiking with my boys, and then I would drag teachers out from Vinadanks to... I used to challenge the young men PE teachers to hike with me. So I didn't always have to hike by myself, but I did not join the Sierra Club till I retired.
Oh, really?
And I was really happy to have extra time having retired, but my wife did not want me to hike by myself, so I had to join a group, and I went on a couple Sierra Club hikes, and they were impressed with the experience I already had hiking, and they said, sign up for leadership training. And so I did. I had hiked with Sierra Club for like 6 months before going to the leadership training. I was trained. I had to do 2 provisional hikes where I led the hike but was supervised by an experienced hiking leader, and do a lot of paperwork and get first aid training, and eventually was certified and then began leading the hikes. Well, about a year later, one of the people that did the leadership training was injured. And, well, no, actually, what happened was the guy had been leading the field exercise. Part of the training is map and compass training, where you're given a map and a compass, and they show you on the map the destination, and you have to get there and not by any trails.
Wow.
And the guy who had led that for the last 30 years was getting too old to do it. So they had recruited somebody else who had done it with him a couple years, I think. And they wanted me then to be trained by her, so there'd be 2 people. And I agreed to do that. Well, a week before, maybe it was 2 weeks before, she tore her Achilles tendon. So I had it all by myself, and here I was, a certified hiking leader for just a year, and now I was training other hikers. The advantage of that is my memory of that map and compass exercise was very vivid, and so it made it easier for me to remember how it was done, and from then on, that's what I did, and then I started slowly adding. They started having me do other things. Then I did the nighttime role playing with the qualities of the psychology of leadership, and as well as the field exercise. And then I got involved with Sierra Club other ways. I'm on the executive committee for the Los Serranos group in the San Gorgonio chapter. I sit in on political interviews because Sierra Club endorses political candidates who support the environment. And I am the outings chair for the Los Serranos group, and I lead regular. Right now I'm leading a hike every Wednesday.
How big are those groups typically that you lead?
Yesterday there were 8 of us.
Okay. Are there particular challenges when you're leading folks that don't have the expertise that you have, that don't know the trail, that they haven't been on that particular mountain or that trail before?
Well, not usually, but I do have to stress certain things. I do a lot of hikes at high elevation in the summer, because in the summer it's too hot at low elevation. You know, the higher you go, the cooler it gets. And there are certain things about that you have to be aware of, particularly in the summer, but even in the winter. At high elevation, you can get dehydrated. And so I really have to push that people bring enough water and they drink. I had one incident, and actually this was an experienced person who started getting leg cramps. Well, that is a typical symptom of dehydration. You start getting leg cramps. And so right away, someone had an extra Gatorade bottle to replenish the electrolytes, and gave him water, and he made it, but it was not easy.
Has hiking, would you say, gotten any easier over the decades? I mean, certainly the trails and the mountains are still there the way they've always been, but the technology, the equipment, the gear that you can buy, has that made it any easier for some of these really strenuous hikes?
The big improvement there is like backpacking. There's super light backpacking gear. But I'm not a backpacker, so that doesn't affect me. I'm not a big person, and I don't like carrying even a lightweight backpack for a week backpack trip. So what I like to do is I like to go on mule pack trips.
Oh, okay.
Where the mules carry all the gear, and I just do the day hike and carry the lunch.
Talk to me, I was hearing that as part of the outings that you lead, there's a program you run where you issue patches, almost like scouting.
Yes.
Can you talk to me about that?
Yes, and
they're almost like merit badges in a sense, or sort of a badge of accomplishment?
yeah, and I brought the patch, and I think it's in the car.
Well, no, just talk to me about kind of the symbolism of it.
We wanted to encourage more people to be hiking with us, especially a challenge for the Sierra Club, as with some other organizations that have been around for a long time, is getting young people involved. And so Los Serranos group was actually the third group that came up with the patch program. I believe the first group was the Big Bear group, and they have a patch for doing the 5 peaks surrounding Big Bear Lake. So you hike to the top of, and on a Sierra Club hike, led by a Sierra Club hiking leader, and you get a patch. And typically you sew the patch, they're round, they're about this big. The next patch program, I think, or maybe they were simultaneous, was doing sections of the Pacific Crest Trail.
Okay.
You know, the Pacific Crest Trail goes from Mexico all the way up to Canada. But most people can't afford to give up 6 months of their life to do the whole thing in one through trip. So they do sections. And I don't know the mileage of each section, but we have hiking leaders in the San Gorgonio chapter that leads section hikes. And if you complete all the hikes to complete a section, you get a patch.
Wow. Do you have that one fabled hike that you haven't gone on that's like your white whale that someday?
I may be too old for it now. I wanted to do Whitney. I have never done Whitney. It was on my bucket list. I don't know if I'll ever do it. Every year it gets harder and harder.
Well, tell me about some of the challenges for either veteran hikers or even new hikers. I mean, is it not having the conditioning, the muscle strength? Is it the not knowing how much water that you're going to need to bring? Or what are things that people aren't typically thinking of who haven't done this on a regular basis?
You have to start slow.
Okay.
And when you first start, you're going to be sore. I mean, you're
When
going to
you
have
say
sore
start
muscles.
slow, do you mean like walk around your neighborhood for a few weeks versus walking a smaller mountain? Like how
if
slow
you
do you
don't
mean?
if you don't get any exercise, start walking on flat land.
Okay.
And then walk again flat but with slight incline. For instance, Euclid Avenue in
Sure,
Upland.
yes.
That's a great place to walk up. It's a gradual incline, but it is an incline. And you can get in a pretty good workout. That's a good place to start. And then you move to the foothills. The city of Claremont has a wonderful wilderness park with lots of trails there you can hike on. I do a lot of hiking there. And then you go a little higher and do things like Sunset Peak and Stoddard Peak, and those are what they call lower peaks. that aren't as strenuous, and then just slowly work your way up. And I have to do it every spring because in the winter I do not hike at high altitude because hiking in snow and ice is dangerous. And every year, experienced and inexperienced people die up there. And so I stick to the lower elevations in the winter. And so that means every spring I've got to recondition myself to hiking at altitude.
I am impressed, though, that you are able to do it. Like I said, I hiked Ontario Peak about 6 years ago, and wow, when you say strenuous, they really meant it. So,
yeah, I did that yesterday. Oh. And let me say something about my patch program. It's the 7 peaks of the Cucamonga Wilderness. And so I'm going to be doing all those peaks at least twice this hiking season, some of them 3 times.
Wow.
And to get the patch, it's not, you don't have to do it in 1 year. It could take you 3 years. So it's cumulative. And we started it in 2019, and then COVID hit and everything stopped. But we had 4 people that completed it in 2019, and I just awarded one 2 weeks ago to someone who did 6 peaks in 2019 and finished the 7th one 2 weeks ago.
Oh, terrific. Before I let you go, I want to let people know where they can find out more about the organization, where they can find out more about these outings. So the website is sangorgonio2.sierraclub.org. Is that correct?
Correct.
We'll put that up on the screen. And then Facebook, it's Sierra Club San Gorgonio 2, Instagram SC San Gorgonio. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask, is there something unique about the San Gabriels? Like growing up here and having access to so many different mountains and trails and places to explore, did that make it a really wonderful place to grow up? Having all of this wilderness kind of around you. And what's that thing they say? Within a 2-hour drive, you can ski, snow, ski, surf.
That's
hike.
Right. Yeah, it's a half-hour drive for me from my house to the trailhead where I can do Mount Harwood, Mount Baldy, Thunder Mountain. There's all kinds of trails. And the thing about the San Gabriels is that it's a transverse mountain range. It's been twisted by the San Andreas Fault. And it's young, so they're very steep, and it's growing. Mount Baldy grew 5 feet in the earthquake in 1992. It used to be 10,064, it's now 10,069. All those peaks actually grew. When we have these big earthquakes, it's because there's a lot of movement going on. So it's a young mountain range, it's very rugged, very steep. And there's a certain beauty in that ruggedness, yeah. I love them.
Do you think that in the time that the pandemic kind of kept people off the trails, that people will notice changes now? Will there be more wildlife? Will the trails be less visible? We heard so much in the beginning about traffic was gone and air pollution was gone. I mean, will there be a measurable impact on these hiking places?
Well, if you had moved out of the area before the pandemic and came back, the first thing you would notice is that there's a lot more people hiking. Because when all the gyms closed, a lot of people, they wanted to get exercise still. They went up in the hills to hike, and there's a whole lot more people hiking now than there was before the pandemic, and it had been on the increase anyway, even before the pandemic.
So, John, I want to thank you for being on the program. To find out more about these terrific outings, again, the website is sangorgonio2.sierraclub.org. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.